Well, hello, we're ready to start. So welcome to Community and Autonomy in School, Meet Sudbury International. Thanks for being here. We're really thrilled to have you here. We have almost 200 participants from 23 different countries. And so we're really happy to have you here. I'm going to be your host. I'm Daniel Merino. Let me introduce myself really quick. I am the founder of Udesya, Sudbury International School in Mexico, in Sinaloa. And I am an entrepreneur, parent, and a very passionate person about education. And I have been in this journey for more than 10 years. So I'm going to explain to you uh, how this event is going to work. So, what to expect? I'm going to be sharing with you three things. First, the why. Why are we doing this event? What this conference will cover, and who we are. So let's start with the why. So why are we doing this? Um, you will find out pretty soon that a lot of people that are involved in this Sudbury education are very passionate about what we are doing. And we want to make sure that you see that it's not just about our beliefs and our passion, but it is also supported by collective experience and real data. And also, we want to make sure that you know that this is not just happening like something happening in one isolated part of the world. This is happening in many cities, in many countries around the world. And the amazing thing is that we are having similar experiences through the years, and that gives extensive knowledge. And because of all of those things that we have seen firsthand, we want to make sure that this opportunity is open for more schools, for more families, so that they can experience a joyful and empowering education. Yes, it is possible and it is amazing. Uh, what is this webinar about? We're going to be exploring how community and autonomy shape learning. We're going to be showcasing stories and experiences from Sudbury schools around the world. And we're going to be providing insights into how a Sudbury environment can help individuals live a fulfilling and meaningful life. And yeah, and you could be asking yourself, but what is a Sudbury school? And it could get a little complicated. So I'm going to try to put it as simple as possible. It is a self-directed, self-governed, collaborative learning community where students have full autonomy over their education, learning through play, exploration, and real life experiences. And we have seen that in all of our schools, we share these common values. And how we have structured this event is that we're going to be presenting each of these values, but it's going to be presented by a different person in a different school in a different part of the world with real life experiences. So we're going to begin with trust, then another person will be presenting free play, responsibility, community, and we're going to be ending with participatory governance. And since they're going to be sharing real life experiences, we hope that after the event, you're going to get like a better picture of how a Sudbury school works. And we have tried to make it very easy to go in this experience. So each of these parts is going to last us just 7 minutes. So this is going to be very powerful. Uh, Now, I want to share the who are the participating schools. And very important to say, these are just a few schools from a larger Sudbury community worldwide. So we have from the US, we have the Miami Sudbury School, the Open School in California, Three Rivers Village School in Pennsylvania, Tall Grass Sudbury School in Chicago, WyldFlower Learning Community in Wyoming, and Macomber Center in Massachusetts. From the UK, we have East Kent Sudbury in Dover. From South Africa, we have Riverstone Village. From Mexico, Udesya in Sinaloa, that's where I'm from. And from Israel, we have Sudbury, Hela Valley, Sudbury, Farsaba, and Jerusalem, Sudbury. And before we start, just a few things to consider. Please introduce yourself. I'm seeing that you are already doing that, but please say your name, share where are you from, if you're a parent, an educator, if you have kids, how many kids do you have? So that's really important. Then we encourage you to stay till the end for the Q&A, but do not wait for your questions. As you are going through the conference and you're having questions, please start putting those questions in the chat, because we're going to be organizing those questions so that at the end, we can go right directly into the answers. And also, if you are interested in joining our community, either as an educator, a school, a parent, please let us know in the chat. And finally, we will be hosting an after party. So what is an after party in a webinar? For those who do not know, it will be just a special space that is going to be after the formal conference, so that we can just, with the open cameras and mics, get to know each other personally, have informal conversations, and I think it will be cool. So if you are up for that, at the end of the conference, we're going to be sharing in the chat a link so that you go and can join that after party. Okay, so we're ready to begin. And we're going to begin with trust. And for that value, we will have Ellen Wood from WyldFlower Learning Center to present it to us. So Ellen Wood is a co-founder of WyldFlower Learning Community in Sheridan, Wyoming. With a background as an art teacher, reading intervention specialist, and after-school program director in public schools, Ellen's path shifted as she began researching choice-based classrooms and student autonomy. Her commitment to self-directed learning took root through Montessori and led her into the world of Sudbury, inspired by the question, is there a better way? At WyldFlower, Ellen is honored to witness children thrive as they pursue learning naturally and freely. So thanks. Let's begin.
Today, I'm honored to speak on trust and the importance of believing in children's natural capacity to learn. Sudbury schools embrace this philosophy, valuing autonomy, respect, and the belief that children, when given freedom, will discover their own paths to mastery and growth. Our role as adults is not to direct or to impose, but to support and to guide, helping students connect with the resources they need to learn in their own unique ways. Now, I understand that trusting children so completely might sound wild or irresponsible, maybe even dangerous, but I challenge you to keep an open mind and picture with me SeaWorld. It's a place in the United States where orcas are kept on display. Hold that image and I'll come back to it. The first point I'd like to make is that trusting self-directed learning is a process. It's going to take time for demonstration, but Sudbury-inspired schools exemplify self-determination theory, which emphasizes autonomy, relatedness, and connection. This framework recognizes that humans, yes, children are humans, that humans thrive when they feel like they're making meaningful choices about their lives and have connection to the world around them. So imagine a learning space where children can explore their own interests, initiate their own projects, and resolve conflicts themselves. They choose what they want to study, not to earn rewards or avoid punishments, but out of their own internal motivation. In this model, the role of the adult is not to enforce or force learning, but to support it. We're there to offer resources and guidance, not requirements or consequences. This act of trust is powerful, and I'd like to share a student story here. They've experienced profound effects from this kind of trust in our community. They're demonstrating what can happen when children are allowed to explore learning on their own terms. So here's Ava. I'll turn it over for a minute.
Trust in WyldFlower is exhibited in many instances. I know I am trusted because I am given many opportunities I would not have otherwise been given in an ordinary school system. WyldFlower shows trust in students by empowering us to make our own learning choices, believing in our ability to set goals and manage time, allowing us to take ownership of our education, and providing support while respecting our autonomy. This creates conditions where I feel safe to explore, experiment, and even make mistakes without fear of punishment, but still being held accountable by my peers. An example of the trust I am given is my ability to go off campus. We as students have worked very hard to create a system that allows students to go off campus in a group without staff members. We did this by working with each other, a lawyer, and staff to create a rubric to make it possible for students to leave the space without staff. As a pathway student, the high school program at WyldFlower, I am trusted to have complete control of my future. With help from those around me, I get to make my own life decisions and learn what I want to do with the rest of my life. Making small goals in my high school journey, I'm building my confidence in myself. I also get to learn more about the world around me without being thrown directly into the deep end when I graduate.
Thanks, Ava, so much for sharing. We really trust in humans' natural drive to learn and to master skills. History and science have consistently shown us that humans have an innate drive to learn, explore, and master skills. Observe children outside of a classroom, and you'll notice they're always experimenting. They're asking questions, and they're just trying to make sense of the world. This natural curiosity is the foundation for all learning. Traditional classrooms tend to teach this out of them, but in a self-directed environment, adults simply support this curiosity instead of trying to control it. When we confine learning within rigid structures and test-based standards, it's like watching orcas in captivity. Just as captive orcas don't display a full range of their normal behavior, children in traditional classrooms don't exhibit a full potential of theirs either. We restrict their natural drive and impose external metrics rather than trust their inner motivation to grow and to learn. If we truly trust children, we allow that curiosity to take the lead. We honor their autonomy and we watch them flourish. Which brings me back to orcas at SeaWorld. I want to challenge you because changing an environment can really change the outcome and the returns that we're looking for. Researchers studying animals in captivity often ask questions like, how can we keep them from becoming depressed? Or what can we do to keep them as healthy as possible within these limitations? And while these answers might offer some insight, they definitely don't capture the whole picture of the orca's natural behaviors and needs. Only by studying species in the wild within their natural environments can we hope to understand their true social structure, behavior, or abilities. It's similar when we observe children in restrictive, coercive environments. We're only gathering data that reflects a narrow view of their potential. If we change the environment, providing space, autonomy, and freedom to follow their own passions, then entirely different data sets and results begin to emerge. Like orcas flourishing in the vast ocean, children thrive when given freedom in a learning community that respects their self-direction. So in closing, to truly support children's growth, we need to embrace 3 levels of trust. Trust in the process. Self-determination theory shows us that self-directed learning is the only kind of learning that is meaningful to the individual. It provides a foundation for children to explore the world on their own terms, allowing for deeper engagement and profound personal growth. We also trust in the human drive to learn. Children are inherently motivated to explore and master their surroundings. They don't need coercion to learn. They need freedom, respect, responsibility, and the support to pursue the interests that they have. And we can trust that observing children in restricted, coercive systems limits them. But when we create environments that respect their autonomy, we discover their true capabilities, motivations, and maybe even areas of unexpected brilliance. In the end, trusting children's natural ability to learn is not only freeing for them, but it opens up a world of possibilities we as adults may never have imagined. Thanks so much for letting me share today.
So thank you, Ellen. we're gonna go now into free play. And for that, we will have Gianna Clements. She's a mother, a writer, co-founder, and facilitator at Riverstone Village in South Africa, and a founding member of the Rights-Centric Education Network. After studying philosophy, political science, and psychology, she began working with young people on environmental rights and saw how many found their education limiting instead of empowering. In 2005, she registered for a Master in Philosophy of Education to create a progressive model that fulfilled young people's rights. Disillusioned by restrictive academic structures, she left to pursue self-directed study, ultimately finding in Sudbury Valley School a model, a way to optimize childhood experiences while upholding youth rights in ways that you could help young people prepare for our unpredictable future. And let me give you control. Okay, so there you go.
Thanks so much, Daniel. So I'd like to start with a play quote from Carl Rogers, because I started out in psychology before I came to education. And he was one of my inspirations in terms of understanding how to center things around the human. And he said that play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning. But for children, play is serious learning. Now, all babies are born curious and playful because play is actually nature's education plan for all mammals. If we think about little babies, all of us learned to walk and talk, and we learned many other skills completely through free play interaction with supportive community around us, without formal lessons. Have you ever wondered why so many children seem driven to make shelter of various kinds around the world across every culture? Research by evolutionary psychologists and anthropologists have actually shown that in hunter-gatherer cultures, children are free to play all day, every day, with their age-mixed peers out of adult supervision for a lot of the time. And to bring in a quote from the Sudbury School, Sudbury Valley School, the original Sudbury, Daniel Greenberg, on this topic. He said the children watched, listened, asked questions, used play to simulate adult roles, and slowly became aware of what they needed to do to survive and become contributing members of their family and society. That education plan helped our ancestors survive through all of our evolution. So here's a roughly scaled visual representation of our educational history as a species. For about 200,000 years, every single one of us, all of our ancestral lines, education relied completely on free play, mimicry, and mentoring. Then for about 10,000 years, roughly, we had agricultural societies, which still relied heavily on free play and mimicry, but the mentorship in some cases became a bit more formalized with apprenticeships. Then for only about 2,000 years, I'm not sure, where's my, there we go. For about 2,000 years in a couple of places like Egypt and China and Greece, we had formal schools where we actually had curricula, we had subjects, but this was still very rare and only for the few. And then a tiny little red line at the very end is the last couple of 100 years where we've actually had schools that have grades, curriculum, subjects, and tests. Very recent innovation. So some academics with zero experience of our approach to education I've seen claim that children who naturally learn harder things like walking and talking must be forced to learn to read, for example, using explicit instruction, because that's not instinctive. That's a tool of the culture. And knowing what I know, this is me trying to keep a straight face when I see or encounter that, because it's exactly because these things are tools of the culture that they are learned. Researchers into our model and into hunter-gatherer cultures have found that there is an instinct or hardwired evolutionary drive precisely to master the key tools of the culture, and that's what drives children to learn. And yes, all Sudbury kids do learn to read, and there's some very interesting stories about that. So is a cell phone a tool of the culture? Is just the last thought I'd like to leave you with on that particular topic. And how do kids learn to use those? Do we sit them down and give them lessons? Or do they give us lessons because they learn through play, so they know a whole lot more? So free play, what is free play compared to other forms of play? So that's when children have full freedom to play in whatever way they want. They are the originators, they are the drivers of their activity, and they can choose everything from the play materials, the interest area, the plot. Everything is actually voluntary and in the child's control. We sometimes get annoyed with children who free play games that have got rules by changing the rules, but that's also engaging with the tool of the culture. Play skills are actually skills that are necessary for both academic and life success, and they only develop when children have enough opportunity for free play. There have been experiences in mainstream education where some children don't get enough free play when they're small, and there is an academic price to pay for that. Play skills include imaginative thinking and exploration, abstract thinking, problem solving, leadership skills, life skills, communication development, social skills development, understanding of safety, self-confidence and self-esteem, and use of theory of mind, being able to understand someone else's perspective. And pretend play is often used as a measure to predict a child's language skills as they grow older. And of course, we know that language skills underlie reading acquisition. The secret of the Sudbury approach to education is that children learn as they play. Most importantly, in play, children learn how to learn. And when children are free to play, they naturally play at the ever-advancing edges of their mental or physical abilities. If we think about this, as Ellen was saying, when we watch children in the wild, everything they master, they want to go the next level straight away. So how does that work once children get bigger into their teens and young adulthood? How can they still keep learning through play? Certainly, they have to get serious about it at some point. Well, when we consider quotes like this one from the inventor Thomas Edison, "I never did a day's work in my life, it was all fun," we start to realize that it's not about what you do, it's about the spirit in which you do it. So what makes it play? And here we've got a quote from Mimsy Sadowski, other co-founder of the original Sudbury Valley School, who we're very honored to have as our special guest tonight. Thrilled to have you here. What makes it play is following a path of action or thought freely. And this is where freedom and play are completely intertwined concepts. Motivated by an inner curiosity and desire to experiment and explore without being afraid of making mistakes. And work that aligns with our personal passions, values, and sense of purpose instead of being someone else's idea of valuable feels like really good play, which is how Edison can come up with a quote like that. So all of these kids here are actually engaged in free play. These pictures were all taken in Riverstone Village's first year. Every single one of these had access to Wi-Fi and a device while they were doing this, and they could have been watching movies instead and nobody would have stopped them. But this was more satisfying. All of these kids too, even the teenagers pushing weights. It's a very popular activity with our teams at Riverstone. And for this particular graduating team, free play included learning to make his own gear out of fabric, wood, leather, and metal. And it also included mastering keyboard and digital music composition, coding, game development, stop motion filmmaking, exploring entrepreneurship, and learning some French and Japanese. Whereas for his friend, with whom he spent a lot of time, they were doing completely different things. His friend was interested in physics, and he spent quite a bit of time playing with refuting accepted explanations of the Feynman sprinkler problem, figuring out ways to improve neural network design, mastering 3D digital modeling and animation, game design, team management, acting, voice acting, singing, and digital music production. Free play is actually essential for good mental health and well-being because it fulfills those core human needs that Ellen mentioned. It signals safety, it affirms competence, it allows autonomy, and it builds relatedness. And even physically risky free play is necessary. It actually lays foundations for independence, decision-making, and resilience. So next time you have people saying that giving children too much freedom might reduce their stick-to-itiveness and make them lazy, remember what we are sharing tonight. Fact of the matter is that globally, today's children have fewer free play opportunities than ever before. And this has been linked to anxiety, depression, myopia, posture and skeletal problems, and obesity. And Sudbury schools are actually one of the few sanctuaries for free play that are left. Surveys going back 50 years now show that up to 91% of Sudbury graduates have gone to college or university if they chose to, and now work successfully in careers that they enjoy. So it really does seem clear that a good education doesn't have to cost a childhood. So why not let them play?
Thank you, Jana. That was really great. So we're gonna be moving on to responsibility. And for that, we're gonna be having two amazing speakers. We're gonna have first Christen Parker-Yarnal. She is a dedicated educator with over 15 years of experience in teaching and child development. She has taught in both high schools and at the university level with experience across diverse educational models, including Montessori and Reggio Emilia. Christen holds a BA in English from the University of Florida and a master's in Spanish from St. Louis University. Her postgraduate studies introduced her to progressive, research-based teaching methods, igniting her passion for the Sudbury model after reading Free to Learn by Peter Gray. In 2018, she founded the Miami Sudbury School, where as a staff member, she finds joy in seeing students take full ownership of their learning and growth in a truly empowering environment. And also we will have Khadija Mutri, and she was a founding student in the first graduate at the Miami Sudbury School, where she served as a chairperson of the school meeting and held numerous leadership roles. She went on to attend Northeastern University in Boston, graduating with distinction. Khadija now serves on the board of directors of the Miami Sudbury School and works as a member for underserved adolescent girls in the greater Boston area. So thanks, and let's begin.
Hi, so every parent and every school want children to become responsible. But how does that actually happen? What we know is that doing what you're told is vastly different from knowing what to do and choosing to do it. In fact, it's sometimes the hardest part for young people starting at a Sudbury school. We find that the longer a young person has experienced being rewarded for what they're told to do, for obedience at performance-based schools, often the harder it is when they come to a Sudbury model school for them to know for themselves what the right thing to do is. It's actually a skill that needs practice. Young people need a lot of time to practice real responsibility in age-appropriate ways before they turn 18. Otherwise, we think it's really unfair to expect it from them. If they've primarily practiced obedience, we really should not expect responsibility. New students are often surprised by how seasoned Sudbury students, and seasoned can mean the age of 7 or 8, have so much confidence in themselves and how they make things happen without waiting for an adult to take the lead or to take over. It's practice, and they need a lot of it. So let's look here at what are age-appropriate responsibilities. We're going to look first at 3 seemingly simple examples out of many that are practiced on a daily basis: eating lunch, taking action, and taking an idea to completion. And then we'll quickly touch on how responsibility extends to learning new things. So, how are the muscles of responsibility built? Let's start with lunch. Often enough, during the first few days of a new student being part of our school, we find that new students actually often forget to eat because no one told them to. They have to learn the basic and essential skill of being in touch with their bodily needs and stopping what they're doing to take care of those needs. That's the important beginnings of personal responsibility. Another seemingly simple example of responsibility is what happens at a Sudbury school when the paper towels run out in the bathroom. Sudbury students don't wait for an adult or magical fairies to refill it. They refill the paper towels, and if the supply is running low, they add it to the purchase request sheet. They're responsible for their lives and their community. It's actually no wonder that employers love Sudbury students, and Sudbury teens often report that when they get their first job, they are shocked by how little initiative they find their peers show in the job. And we have to remind them that most teens have really practiced obedience since childhood, but that they simply haven't had the years needed to practice real responsibility the way a Sudbury student gets to. You'll hear in just a few moments how this also translates into college preparedness. The third, taking an idea to completion. So Sudbury students learn how to make their ideas happen, not just sit back and expect someone else to make them happen for them. In this, I want to give 2 quick examples of this form of responsibility. The first is a field trip that didn't happen. And the second is an event that did, as they're both incredibly valuable learning experiences around personal responsibility. The first is the gift of an idea that no one took over, and so it didn't happen. One year, some students had the great idea of taking a trip to the Science Museum in downtown Miami. And everyone was excited about the idea and had ideas for when we should go and how. And Sudbury staff are always available to support students with planning. But we very intentionally want to let students practice asking for help. So we purposefully don't simply take a student's idea and run with it. The last week of school, students asked at our morning meeting if we're still going to the Science Museum, and then they realized that none of them had actually taken the responsibility to take that idea through to completion. So we don't have a photo of that field trip because it didn't happen, and that is extremely valuable. In contrast, a student really wanted a large inflatable water slide at school, the last week of school. So she called around to rental companies, collected money from other interested students, requested funds from school meeting, and then took care of all the logistics when it arrived. Staff could have taken the water slide idea and made it happen. We could have absolutely taken over. And the photos on Instagram would have looked the same, but we would have robbed her of the experience of real responsibility. Sudbury students learn that we are each the authors of our own lives and experiences. We can't wait for other people to make our dreams happen. Now, that could be a saying on a poster in one of our schools, but it's vastly more powerful and effective to have the actual experience of low-stake opportunities to make things happen. Learning is actually another form of responsibility learned at a Sudbury school. How do any of us really learn anything of value? Well, we take the initiative to seek, to find, to ask for help when we need it. I often remind students that they've already learned at least one whole complex language. Knowing that, they know that they can learn anything that they choose to pursue. This kind of responsibility for learning new things is of so much greater value in the long term than what's learned by obediently or resentfully filling out worksheets or answering all the questions on a test. A young person who feels responsible for themselves and for those around them typically can and will learn and do whatever is needed, not waiting for someone else to direct their every step. They are not simply obedient, they are responsible.
So I'm going to be talking a bit more about my experience with responsibility as a Sudbury student and how those skills have really translated into my life as a college student and now even beyond that. So the responsibility that I was able to practice at Sudbury, especially in the ways that Christen mentioned, really did set me up for success, and not just in college, but in really everything that's followed. At the time I arrived in Boston as a freshman, I was already used to directing my own time, taking ownership of my work, my projects, and my goals. This made my transition to college life much, much smoother and less overwhelming compared to a lot of my peers who came from more traditional school settings. So one area where I really saw this difference show up was in my approach to office hours. I noticed that a lot of my peers were great at completing homework and following directions, being obedient, like Christen described, but they didn't have a lot of experience in seizing opportunities that maybe weren't required, like going to office hours. For me, meeting with my professors outside of class really felt natural, and I really did see the benefit of those extra discussions and feedbacks that I was able to get outside of class. So this approach was really valuable during my senior capstone, which was a 25-page paper on a topic of for choosing. So during this process, throughout the whole semester, I really made a point of checking in with my professor once a week or sometimes even more. This routine really helped me manage my time well and gave me a chance to refine my paper with her ongoing feedback. My peers, on the other hand, often struggled to pace their work and left a lot of their writing until the last minute, and even sometimes only attended the office hours that were required to achieve the A. This contrast really showed me how crucial the responsibility and self-direction that I had the space to practice at Sudbury had become to my own approach to success, both in an academic context and now even beyond.
Thank you, Christen and Kadija. Amazing. So we're gonna be moving on to community, and for that we're gonna have Cassi Clausen. She is the founder of the Open School in Orange County in California. Her journey into self-directed education began with a life-changing visit to Summerhill School in England, inspiring her to create a democratic school focused on empowering children. With extensive experience as a teacher, coach, and tutor, Cassi holds a bachelor's degree from Westmont College, a Master of Education from St. Louis, and a Master of Arts from Goldsmiths, University of London. After years of preparation, she launched the Open School in 2015. A passionate advocate for respectful parenting and student empowerment, Cassi is a co-author on self-directed education and parenting and speaks regularly at conferences and educational events. Today, she plays multiple key roles within the school, championing a vision of education rooted in respect, autonomy, and curiosity. So let's hear from Cassi.
Hi, thanks, Daniel. So I'm going to be talking about community, and I want to start with a story. A young student, I'll call him John, was playing with his friends, and as happens at schools where free play, like Yana talked about, is encouraged, he hurt himself. Without prompting from adults, two friends, while he was getting, taken care of, started to make cards to comfort him. And one of them wrote, "You're a strong friend," and gave it to him. It made him feel loads better, way better than the Band-Aids on his knees. This is a true story. This is something that happened at our school just maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's what happens in a community where children have both the autonomy to choose their actions and the deep connections that inspire them to care for others. While honoring student autonomy is a core value that sets Sudbury-style schools apart from conventional schools, our commitment to community distinguishes us from unschooling or drop-in self-directed education centers. By valuing community, students in our schools learn that they are part of something larger than themselves. Autonomy without community can lead to isolation, while community without autonomy risks conformity and the loss of individual identity. In our experience, these two values, autonomy and community, don't compete, but rather they strengthen each other. Our school functions more like a village or a large family. We have students of every age and stage of childhood who are learning alongside each other, with staff serving in roles that are similar to elders in a community. The older students might become mentors for younger ones, while younger students help their older peers grow in empathy and compassion. This age-based aspect of our school is one of our superpowers. We see students find that their people don't have to be the exact same age as them. And often there's strong relationships that grow across the different ages. Consistent engagement within this community also leads to learning experiences that students wouldn't necessarily seek out on their own. So if a friend is interested in building a robot, you might join in, discovering something that you hadn't considered before. Or if someone at school has a fascination with World War II, you're definitely going to end up hearing something about military history, even if it wasn't on your radar before. And if your best friend decides to join a theater group, you might volunteer as a stagehand or assistant director just to spend time with them. So this rubbing elbows with a variety of people who have diverse interests naturally challenges our kids to try new things and explore the world in a way that they might not on their own. While we don't push them towards activities that we as the adults think that they should do, their community and their peers provide a subtle but powerful encouragement to stretch themselves. This is invaluable for growing into the kinds of roles that they'll encounter in society at large as adults. And this natural cross-pollination of interests does more than just expose children to new activities. It develops crucial life skills. They will grow the ability to listen to different perspectives, the confidence to try new things, the wisdom to know when to lead and when to follow. They get really good at working with others, collaborating to make something happen. One student might begin by helping in a friend's theater production, but discover that they have a talent for organization or creative problem solving. So what does this look like in daily life? So let me share some concrete examples from schools like ours of how we build community while preserving individual autonomy. Many schools in our group here utilize something similar to a chore time. This is a time on a regular basis where the whole community stops what they're doing and takes care of their space. They share responsibilities. They might have different spaces where they go and they help clean. And they see that at the same time, we all working together can do this really amazing thing and clean this space instead of just having, like Christen said, the magic fairies taking care of that at the end of the day. We also have community justice processes, and these processes look slightly different amongst different schools, but the system is emerging from the community itself. And often these justice processes will include mediation, conflict resolution, and they're holding the boundaries that the community has agreed to and has set for itself. Other things that we definitely see kids develop compassion. And this to me comes from that age mixing, from having kids who are younger and older and being able to take care of one another. I just recently was sitting with another student, and when I talk about scraped knees, this is a gift. Scraped knees are a gift. Kids learning how to take care of themselves and how to be safe. Like this is a part of learning safety, is having some risky play in a safe space. But we had a student who had been running and fell down, and I was taking care of his knees while one of his friends sat next to him and held his hand. And she said, I'm going to be his comfort person. And she just rubbed his shoulder and told him it's all going to be okay. And he felt a lot better after that. And we also see mentorship coming from the older kids. We had an older student who joined our school when he was 11, and he went through some struggles with holding boundaries, community boundaries. And his personal story then became something where he had to get it together in order to be at the school. It was a possibility he wasn't going to be allowed to be at the school anymore. And he did. He got his act together, and he grew into this incredible teenager who then mentored another student who was going through a similar path, and pulled that kid aside and said, hey, I know, I understand, I've been there, and it's okay, but you've got to pull it together. If you want to be here, it's important for you to grow through this and to get better and to be part of this community. And that younger kid felt understood in a way that none of the adults could do. And he did pull it together, and he did become, and he is now on his path to becoming a mentor for younger kids. So this mentorship thing, this is part of why the age mixing is so powerful and the community is so powerful. So I want to talk about the lasting impact of community and autonomy. There's the impact on a student who graduates from a school that values both the community and personal autonomy. It's profound. Such students enter adulthood with a keen understanding of how they influence others and a desire to seek out or create communities where they can both lead and collaborate. They become empathetic, capable, and confident in their ability to contribute in meaningful ways to any space that they enter. Ultimately, while community and autonomy might seem to be in tension, they're actually both essential for the other to fully exist. True autonomy flourishes in a supportive community, and a healthy community thrives when each member has the autonomy to contribute authentically. So these students that I've told you about, they're not, it's not just about comforting each other or mentoring each other. It's about being autonomous individuals who are choosing to create community together. And when we trust children with both the freedom and responsibility in a supportive community, they don't just learn academics or skills, they learn humanity. They discover that true independence includes the wisdom to be interdependent. And isn't that exactly what we want for our kids and our future leaders, innovators, and citizens? Thanks.
Thank you, Cassi. That was great. So we're almost ready to move on into the Q&A. We have one more value to go, but make sure that if you have questions, keep sending those questions in the chat so that we take that into account. So for the last value that we're going to be talking about is participatory governance. And for that, we have Menahem Goren. He is 69 years old, and he's one of the founders of the Kanaf Sudbury School in Israel. He was a staff member for almost 30 years. His 2 kids and 5 grandkids were, and will be students of Kanaf Sudbury School. So let's go with Menahem.
Hi everybody, I'm Menahem from Kanaf Democratic School in the Golan Heights in the north of Israel. I'm speaking today on behalf of another 3 Sudbury schools in Israel. The Jerusalem School was founded 22 years ago. Emek Hayla Sudbury School is 10 years, and Kfar Saba is also almost 10 years. I'm talking on behalf of them too. On September 1994, we founded Kanaf Democratic School. A month before, we've met Daniel and Hannah Greenberg in Israel, and it was a love for first, second, and third sight. And also, we understood the deep and simple idea of Sudbury Model School, and we decided that Kanaf would be Sudbury School, and that continues till today. I was one of the founders, and also all these 30 years I was a staff member. My kids and my grandkids were educated and educating in the school. On the first day on Sudbury, on Kanaf, we had to start the parliament, and we didn't have a chairperson of the parliament. Asaf was 9th grader, decided to be the chairperson of the parliament because he said, I have a beautiful handwriting. Okay, we agreed with that. And he was the first chairperson of the school. Asaf, in his 4 years in school, took part in a lot of committees, like event committees and budget committees, and also corporations. And while doing that, he saw in himself that he has a passion to doing good to other people. And after finished school, he established a huge company for tourism and recreational and outdoor events. And that's what he's doing now for 20 years in the Golan Heights. So I think being involved in the processes of managing the school through or via the democratic mechanism of direct democracy and egalitarian and the rule of laws, it's empowering the students. I think it's the top floor of combining all the aspects of Sudbury model schools, the emotional, the social, the logical, the bureaucratical, everything is like connecting all the dots into one, let's say, application that you are doing by taking responsibility to what you're doing. And that's a very empowering educational process for the kids. Also, you can see through these processes and the participatory governance that the, let's say, the equal power of doing that. Young students and elder students do very good to the kids. And the second story I want to tell you is about in the 90s, we had a very big debate on the Syrian-Israeli peace process. And it was a process through giving back the Golan Heights in terms of making peace with Syria. And all the people in Israel and also the youth in the school were very, let's say, hot against this because it was our home, it was our school home, and one of the kids, 17 years old, hung a huge sign of anti-process on the fence of the school. It was a girl, 14 years old. She thought a peace with Syria is good, and she ready to give back her home for this process. And she said, you can't do it just hanging signs on the school fence without permission. She sued the student to the JC. The JC is 5 kids, different ages, with 1 staff members, and they discussed the case. They summoned some witnesses, and they decided to pass it to the parliament to a general talk with all the students and the staff members in the school. And the 2 students represented their point of view, and the discussion was about freedom of expression and how not to hurt other feelings and how to use the public area to express your point of views. And the decision of the parliament was kind of funny, but they decided to create a corporation that is responsible for all the graffiti, the wall painting, and the signs in the school. And they appointed the girl, the 14 years girl, to be the chairman of this corporation. So you can see that it takes a lot of multidimensional, complementary process by taking responsible and being involved in the management of the school. And I think this is one of the strongest powers that empowers students in the Sudbury Model School.
So thank you, Menahem, and thank you to everybody that presented. Hopefully you got like this glimpse of each of those values, how important they are to be able to have this Sudbury dynamic going that allow us to have like those amazing experiences and results in the education. So we're ready to go into the Q&A. So while we prepare, I just want to give a special thanks to Jason White Widow for managing all the tech to make this possible. Jason, and I'm going to share just a little bit about him because as I said at the beginning, like every person that I meet that has been involved in the Sudbury education, they have amazing stories and amazing experiences. So Jason transitioned from a successful career in aviation and video game IT to become a stay-at-home dad, motivated by a desire to help his sons, Charlie and Henry, grow into the happiest and most effective adults they could be. His research into child development and educational approaches led him to discover Sudbury schools in 2015. Jason joined the staff at Three Rivers Village School in Pittsburgh, where he combined his passion for parenting and education in a role that fully aligns with his values. And now we're ready to start with the Q&A. And for that, let me present you to Rick Olson. He's going to be managing the Q&A. And he's a staff member and administrator at Tallgrass Sudbury School in Chicago, Illinois, founded in 2008. After spending his postgraduate years in multiple spots in the US as an actor and teaching artist, Rick relocated to Chicago, where he spent 11 years creating an art school directed towards the homeschooled, unschooled, and neurodiverse communities based around the ideas of learning through play. So he's gonna help us with the Q&A, and then we're gonna get back for the closing and to invite you to the after party. So all yours, Rick. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I want to apologize up front. I have a little bit of a cough, so if you do hear me cough a little bit, I do apologize, but I am happy to lead the Q&A. We've had a lot of really great questions come through both in the Q&A and in the chat. I'm going to try to get to quite a few of them. One of the things that we are always open to is from hearing from you. A lot of the people that you've heard speaking and in this community are happy to help with the questions that you have. So if we don't get to everything, definitely maybe plan to stick around for the after party where we'll be able to talk. We might be able to get to a few more. And also don't be afraid to reach out to us because we would be glad to help you out. The first one I'm going to start with, I'm actually going to lead this to Ellen. This got asked in the Q&A section and did get an answer in there, but I know not everyone probably got a chance to read that while you were listening, so I want to go ahead and direct it there. This goes back to the trust subject, and the question was, do you feel that you can do this the same way at any age? Do younger kids need to be more directed, or perhaps older kids? Just some curiosity there. So Ellen, if you would like to respond to that.
Yeah, I would love to. It was a great question, and I know this pops up quite a bit for us. So I would just come back to a really simple answer is we trust kids. That's just like really the baseline of it. And trust is central no matter what age they are. So we really do see that kids are capable of self-determination, and those young ones are honestly in our space at WyldFlower, I can say, are the most self-directed. There's the least barrier. They come in knowing what they want to do. They really do meaningfully contribute to the community. And I think what's unique in Sudbury is that everybody is held to the same standard within our self-governance. So our youngest ones are voting members within the community space to say, what are reasonable boundaries? What are the laws and the community standards that we want to hold ourselves to? And obviously their ability is going to be different at different ages, but the principle is going to stay the same. And we really just believe that everyone learns best when they are trusted. because they're going to then believe themselves to be trustworthy. So younger children naturally learn through exploration play, and they're very attuned to their own needs if you give them the practice to be so. So in my experience personally, at least at WyldFlower, I'll say I don't think they need more direction specifically. And that was the key word in that question that stood out to me. I think they really need the freedom to explore within that safe, supportive environment, within that community, with all that free play that was already discussed, so that when they're trusted, they develop the skills they need to then be self-regulating as they grow older. So again, with all the presenters talking about just that practice, practice, practice. So I would say, it's going to represent itself differently as kids grow and then their different developmental phases. But I think really importantly, by respecting everybody's ability to make meaningful choices, no matter what age they present themselves, we really see a community where kids are flourishing in really authentic ways, and they become more connected to themselves, their own goals, and their own values. So I hope that answers that question. If anybody else has anything they'd like to chime in on, please feel free. Thanks, Rick, for that question.
All right. Thank you so much. The next one I am going to direct to Cassi. So this question comes from the chat. Curiosity about what happens at the center when children resist the responsibilities like a chore time, because they can't participate. So an example may be a young person with a demand avoidant profile or something of that nature.
So yeah, so with the chore time and some of these things where all of the community is coming together at the same time, what's beautiful about that, it's cultural, and so it becomes this is what we do here. Expectation that maybe at first there's some resistance to, but we haven't actually had a lot of determined resistance in short time, because it's just what we do. It's just what happens at 2:15. Everybody, suddenly is, they're in the middle of something and they all put it down and go to their spots and do their thing and come back. If there are kids that are really resistant, I would say this is a little bit more on the responsibility piece than the community piece, but I would say the hardest part about our schools is the responsibility, and especially for younger kids. Like Ellen said, they are so great at self-direction. They are so great at free play. They are just naturals at that. They are not naturals at responsibility. That is a learned piece. And so that is something that, while we do have a lot of patience and support and getting kids to that place, it is a standard and an expectation. And if there's a student who just absolutely refuses, then it might not be the school for them. But that's something that we don't make that, it's not a snap decision because you're not doing chores or something. It's more of a longer conversation with the staff, that maybe with the parents. Maybe they're just not quite old enough. They need another year to mature and come back. But what we generally see is, after students have been at the school for a little bit, they see like, oh no, it's okay. This is what we do here. And they start to hold their part of the community and being responsible there as well.
Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to a different subject here. I'm going to ask this one to go to Gianna. So this is a question about, have Sudbury schools been recognized by education authorities in different jurisdictions? And then also to speak on how Sudbury schools do get their graduates able to move on to their next and have their educational credentials easily recognized by their next stop, whether it be higher education or potential employers.
Thanks, Rick. I don't know if it's possible to put my video back on. I don't have control of it. There we go. Thanks. So yeah, this is quite a key question for us in South Africa because we're trying to navigate this right now. In many places, Sudbury schools are recognized. And in fact, in Israel, the government even helps build some, as far as I understand. And in those places, it's been very, very smooth because, you know, as Khadija was explaining, Sudbury students tend to make very good employees and very good tertiary students, as long as there isn't prejudice preventing them from being able to try. In places like South Africa, it's a little more tricky because we don't, you know, fit any of the definitions in the Schools Act. So it can end up being a bit of a waste of a student's time having to then go and do what else they have to do in order to get into, for example, university. They might need to do an additional set of exams that they don't really need to do, but they have to do so in order to tick a box. But as other presenters have made clear, the students by then know that they can do whatever it is they need to do and they take responsibility for doing it. So they just tend to do it and it's not a problem. But one of the things that we've actually found, also specifically at Riverstone Village, is that pieces of paper aren't as important as they used to be. So we also see quite a lot of Sudbury graduates going straight into employment or opportunities on the basis of things like portfolios or just being able to convince employers that they have the skills, or being able to upskill themselves quickly. We've got a whole video of one of our graduates from Riverstone who taught himself CAD, computer-assisted design, very quickly in order to grab a job opportunity without having to go on a formal course. So I think that probably covers it. Let me know if it didn't.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to direct the next one to myself because I am jealous of how amazing everyone else is, and I want to answer one. But this question actually goes right into what I have done before moving to this model, so I wanted to take it. The question was about, have you seen children with learning disabilities in these programs who have not been motivated or able to learn basic skills such as reading and writing and basic math without a more formal education? So I will say that I've actually found it to be a little bit of an easier road in for students with neurodiversity, although I believe that none of our schools represent themselves as a learning center for neurodiversity. I have actually found many students being freed up to learn these things based on the idea of having their own freedom while they are at school. The basic reason for that is almost all neurodiversities are working within just having small lapses in the connections that are happening within the brain, and that what we really need is further stimulus for making those connections. So for an example that I use a lot when talking to students is, or to parents for students that have neurodiversity, is the ability to not be able, they cannot read and they're not wanting to read, or they cannot do basic math and they're not wanting to ever work on math. But a lot of times what they just need is a different stimulus to get it. So I will ask the question of, are they able to play their favorite game? And I will almost always hear, for hours and hours and hours on end, I can never get them to stop playing their favorite game. And I ask them, well, do we ever wonder why and what that is actually teaching them? What is almost happening with all of those games are going to be mixing all of the stimulus together. We're going to have sounds, sights, we're going to have words, numbers, and all of these things are needed to be able to move on to the next level. When I have all of these different stimulus working at the same time, I'm actually teaching myself how to build some of those connections that I was struggling with when it's just on a piece of paper, that sometimes even the background color of the piece of paper can be causing the issue. So as we allow someone to find their space and their way of finding how they like to get to the information, we often find then very drastic changes in how much information we're able to take in. And then also it comes down to sometimes at our schools, in order to do certain things, you're going to have certain abilities to do it. Maybe that is to go off campus, you have to be able to read the street signs, or maybe that is, any number of different things. And that motivation from within really does drive for asking the questions, if I'm not able to just sit down and do it, of how can I get help with this? And then that's where the staff comes in. So yeah, I just wanted to take that one. I'm gonna move on to another one right now. This one I think it is a really great one. I'm going to send it over to Christen, and I'm gonna just go with, what does a typical day look like for a learner at a Sudbury school? The classic question.
Yeah, great. So I think one of the really exciting things about Sudbury schools is that they balance having framework and, when I think of structure, I think of a framework within which you have the freedom to choose, but, based on certain agreements. And, most Sudbury model schools have that kind of framework within the day. But then within that framework, there's a lot of opportunity, purposeful opportunity for choice. Because again, those are the muscles that we are trying to build with our students, are those muscles of making decisions every day, so that they don't get to 18 and say, well, I've always, just done what I was told. The bell rang, I went to the next class. I was given this, I went to the next thing. So we purposefully build into all of our days lots of choice. So I can give an example at our school, at the Miami Sudbury School. A typical day is students come, and we purposefully give a lot of flexibility for when a student arrives, because again, we're building that choice. So students can arrive between 8:30 a.m. and 10 a.m. They get dropped off, they'll come in, they sign themselves in like they're clocking in for a job on our tablet. And then they put their things away in their cubby. They put their lunchbox on the shelf in the kitchen, or they put their things in the fridge. And then they're choosing what they want to do next. Again, like Cassi said, it's that autonomy and community combo. So they have a lot of choice, but it has to be choices that are okay with the rest of the community, because they're not on a deserted island. They're with other people. So they might choose to get out a puzzle, or build an amazing Jenga tower, or play in our indoor gym, get some supplies out in the art studio. If they're, certified for the pottery wheel, maybe they'll sign that out and they'll get started with a project. For us, we have a daily meeting, our mini morning meeting at 10:15. And that's it's a short time for the community to get together. It's facilitated by a student. All right, what announcements do people have? What's going on today? Does someone have a birthday? If so, who's making cupcakes? So all of the components of the day are again structured around autonomy and community. So what are you choosing to do? How are you choosing to do that with your community? For us at 11 o'clock, we have our version, we call ours the Restorative Justice Committee, and different Sudbury schools call them different things. They're JC, ours is an RJC, the Civics Board at the Open School. And that's a really important space in a typical day at a Sudbury model school, to be able to have that accountability. So students write something that is concerning to them. Somebody broke a rule, or somebody was rude. And this is really important in that daily practice of a typical day, is that it's not just if the adult sees that somebody has, broken an agreement and a rule that the community has. Everyone in the community is empowered to say, hey, that's not okay. I didn't like that. And so then it comes to this committee. For us, that's facilitated by a student as well, with a student secretary and a staff advisor, agreement advisor, so that they can discuss what happened and what do we want to do about this. And, maybe it's, what support do you need to make a better choice next time, because you're breaking an agreement in this community, and that doesn't fly. So that, and then as other people have mentioned, as Cassie mentioned, we all typically have a chore time. And so we have different students that are in different managerial positions as zone managers, and they manage their crew to help clean up the school because it's their space. And there's also really great research that I think hasn't yet been mentioned, that a lot of people know, of the correlation between taking care of your space and your success in your adult life in the future. So again, we build that sort of thing in. So a typical day has things that the community needs, and within that, a lot of space to choose what you want to do next and how you want to structure your time. And again, as Khadija said, then that translates sometimes almost seamlessly into a university experience where a young adult says, I've already had practice choosing what I'm going to do and how to run my life. This is not overwhelming. I've practiced this. So I hope that answers the question of a typical day.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. So before I go on, Daniel, how are we doing on time?
Yeah, we have 5 minutes left. So depending on the questions that you have, we can do it for 5 minutes.
Great. All right. So I actually have a couple that I had in mind. I think actually, why don't I go directly to you, Daniel, with this one. You've done such a great job hosting. I want to make sure you get to answer a question. So can you talk to the strengths in the model for how to handle conflict between students versus conventional schools and how they handle those types of conflicts?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Rick, for the question. I'll try to be brief so that you can ask another one. So it's completely different. In an adult world, when we get like a new kid joining our school, we see that they are looking for the adults to solve all the problems. So it would be natural for a small girl to come and say like, somebody did this to me, I'm having this problem, like please solve it for me. Or they are expecting the adults to even come before they say anything. Like if they start like just a little whining or crying, they expect somebody, a grown-up, to appear and solve everything. And that is so different from what we do here in a Sudbury school. We allow them to really solve their problems. And once they like have the first experience that they can solve their problems, and obviously they have to learn how to do it well, but you learn to do it by doing it. So they get a lot of practice, and pretty soon they feel so confident that they can solve their own problems that they don't need an adult anymore. And those problems can arise, yeah, from breaking a rule, but most of the time it comes from their free play. I mean, they are playing, and I have like this in my mind, like the photograph of three small kids, like 5 and 6 years old, and they are playing and just with their imagination. And then like there's a struggle because one wants to be the queen and the other one wants also to be the queen. So both of the girls were like fighting for the same role in their game. So if they are not able to solve their problem, they will have to stop playing, and they really want to play. So the motivation that it's completely intrinsic to continue to play allows them to be able to solve it even at that young age. And once they solve it, they continue to play, and they're so happy that they did it. So the next time is easier and easier and easier. So it doesn't mean that we don't have problems. We have a lot of problems, but they get very good at solving them. And that is how life is. I mean, we run into obstacles all the time. So the more practice that you have, the better. Thank you, Rick.
Great. And I'm gonna try to do one more here. I believe actually, Yana, this would refer most to what you were speaking about. So I want to direct it to you. So this is a question about parents of younger kids and their fear that kids will not learn to read and write, so that they end up going to other schools and traditional schools until they have that before they enter a Sudbury school. What can you share about, have you ever had cases where a kid doesn't want to learn to read or write, or do you struggle with parents with this subject from time to time?
So we struggle with this with parents all the time, and with children pretty much never. We have kids who don't want to learn to read or do maths. Most often that's because they've come from a place that was more directive, and they've developed what we call sort of a maths allergy or a reading allergy from being pushed further or in ways that they weren't ready for, in which case they can actually pick up some trauma, and they need time to recover from that. And then at some point, when they're sufficiently recovered from it, then life presents them with the imperative that you're not going to manage well unless you can do this thing, and then they discover their intrinsic motivation, and then will come at it from some less formal angle, usually like learning because they want to text their friends, or learning because they want to actually manage the text in a game, or because they want to know the next chapter in the book that people don't have time to read to them. The ones who come in, which we call the lifers, who are self-directed all the way, we don't worry when they don't want to learn to read or do maths, because we just assume they're not quite ready yet. For example, a lot of dyslexic kids seem to have kind of a brain readiness at a slightly older age. And in fact, in our whole model, the average age for learning to read is more like 8.5, not 6. So we just let it run its course, simply because we've consistently seen that at some point life will present that imperative. The student will start to feel disadvantaged by their inability, and they're always free to ask for help. And there are many, many, many different ways to learn these things and pick up these skills. But the one thing that's hard on parents, if the parent happens to have a child who's a latecomer to these skills, it's very hard for that parent to keep trusting, because your extreme outliers might not really be ready until maybe they're early teens, for example. But then the brain readiness is there, the motivation is strong, the autonomies come all the way. They've developed their self-confidence through everything else they've mastered up till then. They haven't been held back because there's no curriculum to fall behind. And then they just go ahead and pick it up. So it's really not unusual to see kids of 14 suddenly getting interested in formal maths for the first time, and kids of 9 suddenly learning to read quite quickly and reading the fat books of Harry Potter by the end of their first year of reading at all.
All right. Thank you so much. I feel like we are pretty much right at our time. So Daniel, I'm going to send it back to you. I just want to thank everyone for the questions, and just thank you all for allowing me to kind of monitor it and move those along to people. Thank you to all the panelists for answering questions that are just thrown at you impromptu.
Thank you, Rick. That was amazing. That was great. I think we answered many questions. So before everybody leaves, a few things. The first one is a special thanks to Daria Velovol, whose vision and organization has made this event a reality. She's from Russia originally, and she founded the Time and Space Sudbury School in Moscow in 2019. Then she relocated with her family to South Florida and in 2022, and she has joined the Miami Sudbury School with her kids. So thanks a lot. I mean, it has been like a key part for having this event ready. And then like the real special thanks to Sudbury Valley School, because I mean, the pioneers of this type of education, this model, this philosophy is thanks to the founders of the Sudbury Valley School in Massachusetts in the US. Because if they weren't the ones that have come up with this model and that have lived through this experience for 55 years, we wouldn't be here. So thanks a lot. And just to close up, remember, we're gonna invite you to the after party. So we're gonna be posting a link, another Zoom link in the chat. But with that link, you will be able to join with your video on and your mic on, and then we will have like this just informal conversation to get to know each other and have this informal conversation. Thanks everybody, like everybody that attended and was here with us. Like we're so happy to have people from 23 different countries. And thanks for the presenters. And well, we'll see you in the next one. I know there are so many topics that we would like to talk, so many amazing presenters that can share experiences from other schools and other parts of the world. Hopefully we can get from the founders of Sudbury Valley School, but we'll keep in touch. Thanks everybody. See you soon. Goodbye.